Godwin Sunday. Just a quick reminder that Global TV is airing on channel 365 on DSTV and channel 276 on Star Times. And also you can join the conversation right now on our various social media handle, right now showing on your screen using at Global TV NG. You can also download the Global TV Nigerian app on Android and iOS devices across the world. Well, we'll be looking this evening at pressing issues across Nigeria. One would say that it has been coming for a while, which has been the level of insecurity in the country. Is it new? No, it's not. But then it has taken a new shape, and that is around the headers farmer clashes across the country. Well, joining me to assess the level of the header farmers clash in Nigeria and how have we been able to, how did we get to this point even as a country, is Lieutenant Colonel Abdulwahab Ademola Lawal, retired, a PhD, PSc, and also FIMC. And we'll be talking about all of this issue. Don't forget that he is also a public policy analyst. So he's the best person to talk to us about this issue coming from a very fundamental background of this nature. But first, let me welcome you to the desk. Lieutenant Colonel Abdulwahab, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. Thank you.
All right, so let's delve into the conversation. A lot of Nigerians are wondering, first, we have a case in Benue where herders farmers clash has claimed 50 lives almost on a daily basis. We've seen what is happening in Plateau State and Zamfara State, where bandits are already asking people to pay money before they could go to their farms. Not just Zamfara, Kebbi. And all of these clashes did not even, we thought that just a nothing thing, but then we now traveled to the western part of Nigeria. We've seen similar incidents in Oyo. To the south, we've seen similar incidents in Edo State. Looking at all of this, bring us up to speed. How did we get to this point where either farmers clash has become a conversation for us as a country right now?
Wow, it's very unfortunate that we've gotten to this level. But let me, first of all, make a clarification.
All right.
When you talk about farmer-header clashes, it gives an impression that, two parties are clashing. But as a matter of fact, it is criminality on the part of one side against another side who is not actually prepared and intended to clash. When you say clash, the two parties are prepared and they are clashing. But where you have one party, fully armed and prepared and having an onslaught on another one, that's not a clash. It's like a robber coming to your house to take over your property and you say you are clashing. No, it's criminality by a set of people that are bent on taking possession of the property of another group. So I would rather classify it more as criminality going on between a gang of criminals that are moving around the country, taking possession and usurping the property of some other group of people. That's the way I look at it. Because as a matter of fact, there can be farmer-header clash, which has been age-long phenomenon. But under that circumstance, it's always, there's conflict management about it. It's managed. Communities live and they clash. Farmer-header clash within communities exists quite all right. In fact, when there are migration, like transhumance, with regards to livestock movement and pastoralists, they move around and they cause a lot of conflict and clashes. But when that happens, the community and the people involved are able to, nip it in the bud, so to speak. But this time around, when it comes with criminality, meaning, one party carrying weapons and arms and invasion and all that, that becomes a different matter entirely. So you are right, we are talking about insecurity of the country, but I will look at it like this. There are two separate questions on this matter. The first question is, yes, farmer-herder clash. That is communal clash that happens. And that aspect is always completely, controlled by community, by regulations, and all that and all that. But this time it has gone beyond that into pure criminality, banditry, terrorism, insurgency, and that's the situation we find ourselves now.
Oh, all right. So, but how did we even get to this point, even in our democratical era? How did we get to this point where banditry and farmers' herder clash has become the subject matter of the day?
Well, I think the introduction of weapons, changed the equation. Naturally, these pastoralists go about, with maybe club sticks to, head their livestock, perhaps machete to cut through the foliage and all that. And, somehow along that line, if there are some infractions by them, farmers can always, confront and, have a minor skirmishes and settle. But when it comes with weapons, so we came into this impasse because of inflow of arms and ammunition uncontrolled into the country.
Let's look again at the farmer-herder clashes that we've had so far in the country. One would say that this herder-farmer clash is largely political. How correct is this to look at it from the political angle?
Well, it's really, for me, it's difficult to call it political. I'm aware that some group of people turn into political. Maybe perhaps politicians are not strong enough to, control it or, stop, the escalation. It continues to grow in leaps and bounds, and politicians are there grandstanding and talking about we are on top of the game. You throw the military into it, you throw it into it, and not just, whereas a lot of fundamental issues are not resolved. So perhaps it's the weakness of the system of government. I don't really want to, because when you talk about it's politicians, then you might perhaps be delving into some theories that talk about Fulanization of Nigeria, Islamization of Nigeria, and all that and all that. That's a dangerous part to because I don't think there's real substance in that, other than the fact that we have allowed, criminality, impunity. That's exactly what it is. Impunity, more of impunity, more of the breakdown of a system. And of course, if you want to blame politicians for it, because we're in a democracy anyway, I go with it. But to pinpoint specifically to say, oh, a particular group of people want to invade the country and all that, I really want to distance myself from that aspect. But I know and I agree that there's, lack of control of movement, invasion with weapons and all that. And government should do a lot more than what they are doing now in controlling it. To that extent, yes, I agree there is a lot of failure on the part of government to stem this in the bud. But when you now drift it into a question of politics, about, oh, is it PDP that's causing it? Is it APC that brought it in? And we've heard a lot of stories. Of course, the story of a former chairman of PDP talking about election period where they brought in all these people and all that veering into the realm of politics. But for me, as a public policy analyst and all that, I really look at how we came about this, the failure of policy, the failure of government implementing certain germane things that need to be done. For example, the inflow of arms and ammunition to the country should be controlled. Okay, there are a lot of regulations. As we speak, I don't think Nigeria has any strict law and regulation on transhumans. ECOWAS has one. As we speak, I don't think any Nigerian can pinpointly say that, oh, this livestock this cattle number this with so is moving from here to here. There's need for framework and strict regulation on transhumance, even within the country. Beyond inflow from outside the borders, even within the country, movement from one place to the other. We are moving from, for example, Niger to Kwara or Katsina to Kaduna. Should be tracked. There should be tracking system. These are the failures that we talk about, rather than politicians behind it.
All right, so let's look at this issue in terms of x-raying how we got to this point. We've lost count of the number of people, lives that have been lost as a result of the farmers-headed clashes so far across the country. No geopolitical zone in the country has been spared in all of this. When we thought that it doesn't affect people from the east, Enugu is also saying the same thing right now.
That's true.
That there's been large number of headers, farmer clashes within Enugu. But let's look at this. Can we attribute this high rising farmer header clash to other factors such as poverty in the land or lack of education that has led to all of this increase in the number of header farmer clashes in the country? Can we attribute this to these factors?
Well, I think the first thing we should look at is the climate change. If you know the trend, of the climate change thing, the Sahel is getting drier. In fact, if you look at Lake Chad now, it's getting completely dry, and so it's about the climate itself, where people want to now move down to where they can have fertile land to actually feed this livestock, and of course water. So the first and most important thing that you have to think about is how you can really control movement, demography as a result of this question of climate change. It's for real, and so the whole of Sahel is having the impact of this climate change. It's getting drier, water is getting limited, and therefore there will be a press down to where you can have natural resources. So first and foremost, I think the question of a conflict of natural resources, competition for natural resources, becomes the issue. The farmer relies on his the fertility of the ground. It's fertile. There's water. So the soil is good enough for agriculture and all that. But up north, where climate change is having a devastating effect, is drying up and water is getting limited, the press down. I think these are some of the main challenges. Yes, poverty, but we also know that poverty can be controlled by so many other means. Poverty, okay, the south, there's poverty in the south too, but they are not migrating anywhere. They are within their own community, managing and adapting and controlling the circumstances of their poverty and how to improve on it. They don't invade, they don't migrate. You get my point?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, so when you talk about poverty, poverty is across board. But how you manage it is the question. So for me, I want to target specifically to this question of, the changes in climate, how it affects, different regions of the place, so that when you look at it critically and you see what's happening in the Sahel, and you see demography, and you see movement of, human beings and their livestock, it's all a question of moving to get better pastoral, environment.
So we can't say at this point that it's lack of education that is also a factor, and most of the headers are not educated, and of such the farmers too are not educated. So when they meet along, there'll be this clash in between. We can't tie it up to this.
I agree with you completely. Education is very important, very, very important, because if you look at the argument that's going on in this country about the question of even stopping this question of, cattle wandering around uncontrolled, and all that, why don't you ranch them? Okay, why don't you have grazing land for them and restrict them to specific areas and control them and manage them better and provide better economic environment, the water, electricity, name it, model, arrangement for them to actually be better off, but because of lack of education. If you look at them, we've been encountering a lot of them on the street. You see them, they are not educated. Even children that are supposed to be in school are not in school. They are busy, heading livestock around everywhere and so on and so forth. So the mindset and more, advocacy around education is very, very key and important. And it's not as if Nigeria is not aware of it, or I'm not trying. You remember in this country, we had a policy of nomadic education, where nomads were followed and tracked to make sure that they go to school. But all of those have collapsed one way or the other. So yes, I agree with you. You have to tie it. If you are educated, you understand life better, you are able to manage your destiny better, and you are able to take advantage of the economic environment and opportunities. But lack of education, can cause all these kind of things. So I agree with you. Education is crucial in this.
All right, so when we look at the various herders-farmer clash across the country, the level of death that we see across the country, one will begin to ask, is it just an herder-farmer clash, or there is something more to this? But you are coming from the military background, and you understand some of the dynamics in understanding the onion layer approach to conflict analysis on peace and conflict resolution. When you look at all of this, does it seem like an ordinary clash between these two people in terms of, or there is more to it? Could there be not just the criminal act of it? Could it be that there is outside criminality, probably internal reef or everything, where you assess with the lens of a personnel? What do you see in all of this?
Well, I tell you what, I see pure criminality. I see criminal economy. Criminal economy in the sense that people want to, don't forget there are some incentives and enabling environment, like I've mentioned, free flow of arms. Once there are arms in your hands and you can get it freely, of course, you begin to do that, criminal enterprise of ransom taking, kidnapping. Don't forget, mining is also there. Mining, grab land, appropriate it, and of course begin to, exploit the resources within that property. And of course, you cannot do that without also controlling the territory. So it now becomes some sort of, insurgency. You terrorize the people, control them, and then take over the territory and continue to possess. Like you said, some communities get, messages about, we are coming, get us 60 million.
Like a case in Zamfara.
Like the case in Zamfara, okay? So that's the kind of thing. Is criminality, is, criminal enterprise that is driving them. And of course, if it continues and they succeed, then of course, they begin to control territorial space. And before you know it, they begin to imagine themselves as government that will now be able to fully take control of not just the natural resources, but even the people. So that's the way I see it. And like I said, the enabling factor, the incentive and the sort of motivation is this question of uncontrolled free flow of arms in the hands of, criminals and bandits.
All right. So let's look at the area of most of the, when we get to talk with some of these communities that have been affected by this elder farmers clash. When you speak to some of the indigents of this area, they tell you that we've reported this case to the police. The turnaround response of the Nigerian police force and other sister security agencies, like the Rangers in the NSCDC, tend to be very slow. when they were approached. Look, a similar case with what happened in Edo State, where we had a situation where more than 18 people, okay, up to 18 people were killed as a result of what happened in Uromi, if I'm still on track.
Precisely, yeah.
But looking at all of this, when security agencies, when these matters are reported to security agencies and they don't respond, doesn't this also show that the security agents at this point in time are also, they also share a part in all of this, probably negligent in all of this, and as such, Nigerians should begin to hold our security agencies to the books. Or what's your take generally on this thought line?
My take is that security agencies are thin on the ground. Thin on the ground in the sense that ungoverned species, you've heard of ungoverned species. There are the large expanse of the country has created so many areas where government presence is not there. And if you look at these criminals and bandits, they just make sure they slot themselves into these ungoverned spaces where it will take a lot of time for arms-bearing security agencies to quickly, take them out because of distance in territorial space and all that. And that is why a lot of people have begun to advocate for some kind of co-production of security between communities and, government agencies. Government agencies have the constitutional right of possession of weapons and firearms, okay? But the community does not. How can they collaborate? Early warning intelligence that you provide to the security agents. And that is precisely what is really, really lacking. And you have to be proactive. I can't imagine a community sitting down and seeing motorcycles, grouping in 10s, in 15s, and all the rest of them without the ability to quickly, alert security agencies. That's number one. Number two is also for the security agencies themselves to have the structure and the technology to respond real time. Those are the challenges we face, and I think these are the areas that conversation will continue to go along, and it's already ongoing. What role can communities play in this question of security? Can there be some, resource sharing in a way that, we'll be able to resolve the problem? Don't forget that the National Security Strategy itself talks about whole of a society approach to security, whole of a society, which means the community themselves should have some responsibilities. But because they are not armed, their responsibility will be reconnaissance, early warning intelligence, that as soon as you suspect something, you quickly relate it to the relevant agencies who are supposed to also have the capacity for quick response.
So when the community report this case to the security agencies, and the security agencies don't respond, and it further leads to breakdown of law and order, shouldn't we rather be, having a conversation around security agencies, probably the man in charge in that community should be arrested for the loss of life? Because most times these things are just swept under the glove, under the carpet, and nobody wants to talk about this. But lives keep going. The communities will tell you they've reached out to security agencies. Like what is happening, what happened or is happening in Zamfara State, where they told you they've reached out to security. They even published it on national dailies. But yet, the tendency for 13 communities in Zamfara not paying the bandit 60 million naira is very slim. Because the security agencies will come and on siren, and in the night, there will be nobody to secure that environment. The bandits will come and perpetrate some of these acts. In such an instance, shouldn't we as a country, as a people, or what will you advocate? Shouldn't we be calling for arrest of security agencies that are supposed to be responsible for this?
Well, I tell you what, I have been in it, at least I served in the army for 22 years as an infantry officer. So I really understand what you are saying. But if you bring that on the table, the person in charge, as you are saying, will also have reasons to say why he's unable to do. For example, if he needs to race to a critical point of maybe it's about 40 or 50 kilometers away, okay, and the road is bad, perhaps he has challenges of logistics and all kinds of challenges thrown upon him. He only mobilizes and gets there at a point that that time and space permits. Time and the space permits for him to reach that location. If he is not, like I keep saying, that we need to improve on our technology. We need to improve on our technology such that response time can be quick. You can have, the early warning mechanism through intelligence from the community and early response that can actually be real-time response. That's the challenge we have. And if you want to accuse somebody of not doing so within his own jurisdiction of command, and you accost him and you say, okay, what's your reason? And he begins to lay down all the facts. How do you hold him accountable? So what I'm saying is that I think that we need to really move forward more in terms of our technology and our capacity to be able to, intervene as quickly as possible in real time. And the only way we can get about doing that is improved technology that, our security agencies must acquire in modern terms. And I always keep giving an example. If you watch the war going on in Russia and Ukraine, it's very interesting the way technology has really, really improved. An old woman sitting by her window with her phone can simply see movement of perhaps Russian troops or some other forces, and she picks her call and says, I've seen some movement here, and not the rest of it. And of course, within a twinkle of an eye, you see, intervention coming. It has to do with technology. We need to improve our technology within the defense and security sector.
Well, Lieutenant Colonel Abdulwahab, if a situation where these security agencies are just a stone throw away from a crime scene, and a call has been put to them, and they responded, they picked the call, but they didn't show up on that crime scene for a walkable or a trackable distance. In such a situation, what should be done in this kind of situation? Because we've seen, of course, most times we'll give the excuse of we don't have fuel in our cars. But then you're called to protect lives and properties. Incident of this, because if we don't begin to address this issue of security men, probably people get fired or people get tried or personnel get arrested for not showing up. Because the mere visibility of security agents within a community can ward off criminality. But then you don't show up, then the next morning, after a community has been wiped out, we get to see security men coming to cordon the area. But prior to that time, they pick the call, but nobody shows up. In this kind of peculiar cases, please tell us, shouldn't the advocacy be that security agencies should be able to be called to the books?
Yes. And I can also say that I cannot speak for other security agencies, but I can give you my experience with the military, with the army. If you have a responsibility in a jurisdiction, in your area of operation, and you are found wanting, you account for it. You certainly account for it. First of all, they will remove you, and not only remove you, but actually, you bear the consequences. Okay, because the person who put you there knows your capacity. Your superior who puts you there knows your capacity and what you can do. And when he sees negligence, of course, you get removed. You get replaced. And once you are removed, it's not as if you are removed to say, oh, a tea party or go, not the rest of them. But some of these things are not made public. And of course, one thing again is that the security agencies must keep their credibility and image in a way that they can be trusted. So where there are areas of lapses and not the rest of them, they do a lot of internal readjustment, and also in particular, as security evolves, they continue to also understand it and train themselves and inform themselves in a better way as to address those things. Once that is done, and you have been deployed for a particular threat, and there's a failure on your part, rest assured that such a person will actually face the way you are saying. But of course, they will not make it public. But you know that something is being done.
All right. It's good that sanctions will be meted on such a person.
Yes.
But let's look at these vulnerable communities. Mm-hmm. The federal government have come out oftentimes to say that light weapons have come against to kick against the proliferation of light weapons, even among communities, and small arms, even in communities. This elder clashes farmer herders clashes most time doesn't seem like a clash. It seems like a near war situation because of the number of death tolls that we keep recording. But we look at all of this right now, in order to profile some form of succor to the community, shouldn't we begin to have conversation as a country around the issues around the legalization of weapons, so that at least some community can resort to self-help in such a situation? Because if people from Plateau are having, at least even if it's a light weapon, they should be able to protect themselves. But they are vulnerable because of some of this act. But you are the professional, you are the expert in this line, in this field. Looking at all of this, shouldn't the advocacy, again, be that communities should be allowed to carry light weapons or small arms, but legalized and controlled by the government in order to resolve this? Because if you know I have weapons and you are coming with weapons, be the elder, be the farmer, whichever side of the divide you fall, both of us will respect ourselves, or don't you think so?
Well, it's an argument as a result of desperation. But really, states are built around the simple fact that it is the state that should guarantee the security and well-being.
But the state has failed in this case now.
So,
or seems to have failed.
And the approach you are taking will even cause even more chaos, gang warfare. Look at what's happening in some of the countries in Latin America, where drug barons and all the rest of them are free and are moving around in streets and so on. It causes a lot of chaos. It turns the state into a banana state. Therefore, as much as possible, control. In fact, the instrument for violence should be under the monopoly of the state in a way that everybody is protected. That is exactly what is an ideal situation. But I don't think that we should really degenerate into a situation where we say, oh, every community, go and arm yourself. It is dangerous, and it will actually scatter the country into pieces. Because from there, okay, look at what's happening with even vigilante. Look at what's happening with vigilante. Ethnic profiling is there. You arm yourself. There are a lot of communal clashes in this country. You are aware that there are communal clashes. community A versus community B over land dispute, and so on and so forth. If all of them are armed, of course, it's going to be chaotic. So even if you remove this question of banditry and farmer-herder clashes apart, and you look at even communities clashing among themselves, and you want to assume that each and every community is arming itself, of course, it's going to be more dangerous, more chaotic, and more fatal than what we are talking about now. It will cause a lot of casualty, and if we don't take time, it will even consume the whole country. So I just hope that with all this intensity of, advocacy and, discussion around it, will turn things around in a way that government itself will begin to look at the loopholes and begin to track and actually, intervene appropriately. And that's why I keep talking about how we can really do some security sector reform in a way that will be more responsive to the challenges they face. And like I've said, for example, there are so many ungoverned spaces. The security, the bandits and those who are in possession of arms are not going to attack the stronghold of government. They're not going to attack places that are, very strong, but they look at isolated, rural communities and all those kind of places that is difficult to reach, and which we call ungoverned spaces. That is where they actually, get into and wreak the havoc they are wreaking. So the answer, therefore, is how you can take advantage of technology to make sure that you may not be able to put human beings, what we call boot on ground, to every nook and cranny of the country. But you have a system. There are drones, there are balloons, there are all kinds of things that you can use to do surveillance, and you'll be able to respond real time. So what I'm saying is that, no, we should not be looking at arming communities. It is dangerous, but we're looking at how to strengthen the existing structure in terms of modernizing it by technology. Otherwise, we are going to, so that's the way forward that I want to,
So in this case, Lieutenant Colonel Abdulwahab, what should the community begin to do in order to guarantee their safety? If they're depending on the security agencies, allegedly, the security agencies is failing most of these communities. Until the president returned to the country, largely the communications was not on the protection of lives and property of many residents of Plateau. As a matter of contingency, the governor Mufwang was overwhelmed with some of the happenings in Plateau State. Governor Alia in Benue State was not even spared on the other side of the divide. This became like a reoccurring phenomenon that was happening almost on a daily basis, back to back in various states. Kwara State, that has been peaceful for a very long while, was not spared in all of this. When attacks of this magnitude, be it either clashes or banditry, happen, what should the community be doing as a way of responding to this if the security agencies are failing them?
Well, I tell you, some of the things they are doing, like the vigilante and, some of the, community security governance woven around the intelligence, quick, intelligent early warning mechanism. These are some of the things that they should actually be doing, while also pressurizing their state governments to make sure that the deployment of security agencies are close by their, communities. Okay, in an ability to respond quickly. For example, if you are aware, a governor of a state, all I would rather do is to oversee and perhaps liaise with the president to make sure that security agencies are deployed in a way that response time will be 15 minutes, for example. 15 minutes. So wherever you deploy them, they should be able to intervene within 15 minutes. And I, who is in control of my own communities, then of course the citizens of my state elected me, therefore they rely on me. I will sit down with them and begin to, design measures and mechanisms where they will have faith in reporting, urgently what is happening. They'll be trained. They should also be trained in watching for the signals, the symbols, things that will be happening.
You mean the community should be trained?
Yeah, trained in terms, not trained in terms of carrying weapons, but trained in terms of intelligence. The teacher should see certain things with maybe among his students. The mother should see certain things with the children. You get my point? All those artisans, all those people, mechanic, the fuel attendant. Somebody comes to maybe with jerrycans of fuel and all the rest of them and wants to buy fuel, you quickly alert. What's going on here? The key to any operation, security operation, is intelligence. And fortunately, the intelligence must emanate from the community. Therefore, you strengthen the community in terms of intelligence and passing it early enough, early warning mechanism from the community. Strengthen the community, encourage them not to lose faith in government and not to lose faith in security agencies, but to play their part very, very strongly, and while also emphasizing that the community and government will try as much as possible to put together structures and organizations that can respond quickly to these challenges here and there.
All right, just as I begin to wrap up at the moment, just on the final take, having assessed the herders-farmers clash in Nigeria, in your own words and in your own analysis, observation, do you think that this herder-farmer clash is going to be resolved anytime soon and become a thing of the past in Nigeria, based on your assessment?
It should be based on determination. The determination to stamp it out. The determination of government to make sure that they take it as a priority. Once they are able to do that and do the needful steps, certainly, it comes with good governance. It comes with determination. It comes with, in fact, the people themselves should be able to insist on, good governance, transparency, all relevant things. Improve the economy, for example. Okay? What attracts people into banditry? Okay? You begin to address all the, we've talked about education. Up to, as we speak, the left out of school children everywhere. These are the people that can grow up to, become a recruit in insurgency and all the rest of them. So there are a lot of good governance mechanism policies that you put in place quickly that will actually fortify and strengthen the community, not in terms of arms bearing, but in terms of education, in terms of resilience, in terms of intelligence, okay? In terms of even removing them from, dissuading them from that, listen, don't forget, like for anybody, there are things that they need to do. For example, if they mop up arms, it's possible to all the arms flowing into the country from the border, mop it up. If he doesn't have a weapon, he can't threaten anybody. Okay? Like me and you sitting down here now, if there's no weapon around anybody, of course we can do a shouting match and, with ourselves and all the rest of them. But the moment there's one person who has a weapon, of course he begins to dominate and control the place. Therefore, measures that, and it's doable, mop up all the weapons. Mop it up. That's why I think there's a commission they call a Small and Light Weapon Commission that is dedicated to remove. So these are the areas that we should do. And it doesn't take time to mop up arms and ammunition from the society. Mop it up completely. Do cordon and search. Search everywhere. Go continue to get intelligence about how it comes in and stop it. Okay? Stop the inflow. Well, those that are already in, get them out. And of course, even the military system or the security system itself that bears these arms, they should be able to secure them properly so that they do not, they don't get, taken away by unauthorized people and others.
Well, Lieutenant Colonel Abdulwahab Ademola, retired.
Lawal.
Lawal, thank you so much for being a part of the desk today.
Yes.
Well, viewers, this is how far we can go today on the desk. Don't forget that you can join the conversation on our various social media handle showing on your screen. Use it at Global TV NG. You can also download the Global TV Nigerian app on your Android and iOS devices to keep track of our daily broadcast. My name is Godwin Sunday. Always remember that peace and unity are the pathways to progress. Till the desk come your way again, always stay fruitful. From all of us here on the desk crew, it's bye for now.